two beautiful little Chinese girls.
This is the doctor who changed the future of the human race and let the world know on YouTube.
Line has been crossed that should not have been crossed.
It's very disturbing. It's inappropriate.
Oh, this is huge.
Hurlbut describes him as smart, but perhaps too trusting of his own wisdom.
As a father of two girls, I can't think of a gift more beautiful and wholesome for the society than giving another couple a chance to start a loving family.
Jiankui. He went to prison in 2018 for editing the genome of two twin babies, also known as CRISPR babies, if you haven't heard of them since 2018. And well, now he's out of jail and he seems to be working in his lab in Beijing for Alzheimer's disease and further. How will this affect and how is this currently affecting the future of gene editing? And well, what ethical concerns should we have? We will cover this in this video. Okay, so briefly to give you an introduction about what the hell is CRISPR? Like, it sounds like a McDonald's burger menu name, but it isn't. It actually stands for, I'm gonna look at it, clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. Like, I can't even say this. And I know it like sounds very confusing, but in literal basic words, it means gene editing, like editing your DNA. If I were to say it in basic words, the ability to edit all your properties that come from your genetics. This can be from your eye color to your hair color to your sex and, well, most importantly, your genetic disorders. Basically the disorders that run in your family. And well, surprise, you can cure it now, I guess. But wait, let me give you a dramatic thing here. But let me tell you, it can also be used for unhealthy mutations, which can basically use as a bioweapon. Oopsie. Go on now. Okay, I want to give like a really short, brief scientific background so all of you can understand, because this can be quite complicated to just hear CRISPR, 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 but not understanding how this works. And this will give us an understanding to understand the ethical concerns around this issue. Okay, so we have two essential items, okay? The first one is the Cas9 protein. It's like a protein. And then we have a guide RNA. Okay, let's start with the first element. The Cas9 protein is actually obtained from a bacteria called Streptococcus pyogenes, okay? As its name actually tells us, it's a nuclease. An ase means an enzyme, and nucleus, like, it basically cuts your DNA, okay? It cuts, you know, think of the DNA, the double-stranded. It cuts it from both sides, okay? And now our guide RNA. Our guide RNA is basically the map, the roadmap of where the Cas9 protein will go. Okay, did you get it? And basically, there can be multiple guide RNAs for the cut to be more efficient, because, you know, the DNA is a long strand and you have to be precise and cut it precisely to not affect any other genes. Yeah, not genes, but like genes, okay? Well, bear with me because it's gonna get a little more confusing from here. And okay, the first process, think about it. The Cas9 protein, guide RNA, they travel together to the DNA. They cut the DNA, right? What happens from there? What happens to the cut part in the other DNA? Will it just separate? No. There are two different processes that can occur from there. The first one is non-homologous end joining. Well, it sounds confusing, but let me just tell you, it just connects the two parts of the DNA, and the end, like the cut part, just goes. It's just deleted of your DNA. Like, how scary this sounds. But I'm just gonna get a little further on that. so you don't have to be scared. And the second one is actually homologous directed repair, in which you introduce a DNA segment that you produce yourself to the body, and it's basically there when the DNA is cut, and it replaces the DNA strand. I hope it's clear. Let's move on. Okay, let's travel way back to 2012, where two women called Jennifer Doudna and Emanuela Charpentier have published a paper explaining CRISPR. Such a revolutionary technique with, CRISPR has been known before, but the Cas9 protein and its mechanism has been discovered in 2012, and they actually won a Nobel Prize of Chemistry for that, okay? And just 6 years later, suddenly, in November 15th, 2018, a video is dropped on YouTube. Like, such a mysterious thing, like the He Labs. I hope it's pronounced like that. Let's watch a snippet of that video.
Two beautiful little Chinese girls named Lulu and Lana came crying into the world as healthy as any other babies a few weeks ago. Grace started her pregnancy by regular IVF, with one difference. Right after we sent her husband's sperm into her egg, we also sent in a little bit of protein and instruction for a gene surgery. This surgery removed the doorway through which HIV entered to infect people.
This man, He Jiankui, that I will be referring to as JK, finished his postdoc in Stanford University, and it's one of the best universities in the world. And then he moved back to China and set up his own lab, where he just studied CRISPR. He dropped this bomb telling people that there were two twin babies born that were genetically modified. And well, the world was shook, the scientists were shook, and nobody understood why and how the man did this without anyone knowing. There were people knowing, but the scientific world was very shocked. The more shocking part is that 3 days later, in November 28, in 2018, a Human Genome Editing International Summit takes place, where JK was invited before. The speaker before JK talks actually mentions that we didn't know about this situation when we invited him.
We didn't know the story that was going to break over the last couple of days when he accepted the invitation to come and speak to us. So we didn't know this story beforehand. In fact, he had sent me the slides he was going to show in this session, and it did not include any of the work that he's now going to talk about. It was sort of preclinical data, but nothing involving human embryos that were implanted.
Well, these babies were born on around November, and well, the gene editing must have been occurring like 9 months earlier, like the beginning of 2018, and the summit was planned probably way after that. So this man knew what he was going to face in this summit. So this man actually knew what he was going to go through in this summit. And people were actually also shook that he actually showed up after dropping such a bomb in the science industry. The science world, I don't want to call it an industry. What's more surprising is that in 2012, as I mentioned before, Jennifer Doudna was actually a part of the audience that day. Let's see a clip of her.
I think a lot of the questions were very good questions and very relevant to the future of this whole field, and not to mention, of course, the people that are directly affected by this. And we did not hear answers to those questions.
Scientists were shook that he had the courage to come here, and knowing that this is not ethically okay and not a methodology that is not safe and applied to human babies without any safety measures taken, according to other people, I guess, because JK claims that he has taken all the scientific and safety measures regarding this issue. The presenter of JK tells people that, yeah, we weren't aware of this situation when we invited him, but we will let him speak. And they say that they checked the slides of his and there weren't anything related to the babies. However, I don't know if I understood it wrong, but the whole slide seems to be about the babies, Lulu and Nana. I mean, the slide title is basically CCR5 gene editing in mouse, monkey, and human embryos using CRISPR-Cas9. And basically, when he first starts speaking, the first thing he says is apologizing for his leaked data. I don't understand this. He says his data is leaked, but he also was the one to publish that video before coming there. And he also says that he published a script for peer review about this study, like statistical data about this situation. So as far as I understood from the summit, I will briefly explain to you the process that he explained that took place. Firstly, Hu Jiankui came back to China. He set up his lab. He was studying CRISPR, and he found out a gene, CCR5, that was affecting HIV. And he was so sure that this was directly related with HIV. And, well, he claims that this was one of the most studied genes, like over 100 million studies have been made over this gene, and he was like positive this gene was gonna affect HIV directly. Okay, this part is done. It was determined that he was gonna try it on HIV. They reached out to HIV communities. There was actually a criteria of the father being HIV positive and the mother being HIV negative. And they found 8 couples, one of them dropping out of this project. The one couple, I think the first couple, the twins were born to, were Grace and Mark, as JK mentioned. And this couple was actually aware of this genetic editing situation, and Hu Jiankui also claims that he talked 1 hour and 10 minutes to, like, for the consent of the patient. Like, we're gonna do this, do that. And they accepted this situation because he also claims that HIV is such a stigmatized thing in China. I mean, it's all around the world, and doctors don't want to treat you. You can't find jobs because nobody wants to hire you. And, well, it's so hard to live with HIV, and such parents want to have kids too, but are scared to have HIV positive kids. And therefore, their only hope seems to be this, as JK claims. During these studies, the university was unaware of these conducted studies. However, there were some peers of his that saw his study, and, well, they went on with it. They wanted to also see it, but JK seems to be the only one who went to prison for it. I mean, that's gonna be a controversial thought, but it is what it is. I don't want to claim that someone is responsible for making JK do this, but yeah, he did this, and he seems very proud in the summit. Like, he also mentions that he's proud that he has done this.
And also for this specific case, I feel proud, actually. I feel proudest because the Mark thought he lost the hope for the life.
Because, yeah, there's no direct cure to HIV. And one thing to mention, though, is that in CRISPR technology, there can also be off-target mutations. It's called off-target because it is a change in a part that you don't want. In this situation, there also was an off-target part in the gene. However, he claims that this part was so far away from any important part of the DNA that the embryos and the children will not be affected from it, as far as he claims to say so. Jiankui also seems to take responsibility for the kids for 18 years. And since they're approximately 5 years old now, we're really curious about how this will turn out. Okay, so basically about his studies, he seems to make this project so that the CCR5 gene is cut. As I mentioned, the first one, non-homologous and something, yeah, he seems to be doing that and just cutting that gene CCR5 out of the DNA. And well, he also says something really important. You know, embryos have fewer cells, and us grown-up adults have a lot of cells. And it's really easier to change the DNA of the embryos because there are fewer cells. Like you have just have to modify 3 cells. Awesome, like quicker process, but it's actually riskier than you think, because when you do something wrong in one, like it's gonna affect the whole body, like, and you can never know how that gene just affects something else too. Okay, so now I'm gonna go to the ethical concerns a little bit in this part, because there was actually a question to him in the summit, and he was talking about the CCR5 gene was studied in mouse, and they found out that it caused some kind of enhancement in the immune system. And when he asked this to JK, he said, I am not in favor of enhancement, like using CRISPR for improving property, because that's basically just editing a gene for like something that's not a must. He just wants to use this editing for genetic diseases, and like not something as like physical properties like eye color, etc. And well, he claims to say so, but we never know in the future how this method will come to the market, you know? Like who would have thought there would be plastic surgery 20 years back? Like where will this go? And how safe will it be? And the main ethical concern here actually was that the safety has not been proven yet. And he just did the experiment. Also, there's an interview I want you to watch.
So Bill, let's start with you. So jiankui goes by JK, so we'll just refer to him as that because it's a lot easier for me. And he left Stanford, went to China, where he was carrying on this work. You guys were friends there while you were there, and you've been in communication with him. So how much, either directly or indirectly, did the scientific community know about what he was actually doing?
Well, I actually first met JK at a meeting that Jennifer and I organized in January 2017. Subsequently, he emailed me 2 months later and said, I'm coming through Stanford, could I talk with you? So I had nothing on my calendar that afternoon, fortunately, so we met for lunch and talked much of the afternoon, and then subsequently came back several more times, and we talked in great depth. But I did not understand that he was pushing quite so fast. Now, I think to back up a little bit, he was under a lot of pressure in the environment he's in. He works in Shenzhen, and there's this concept called Shenzhen speed. Everything's happening fast. There's lots of push for scientific discoveries, and young scientists in China are under pressure, as they are elsewhere. But I I realized very quickly that he did not have much of a background of thought on ethical issues. So I was trying to get to know him a little better, seed in ideas and concerns. But in the end, he went faster than I realized, and I did not know that he had implanted embryos, although the last time I met him, I strongly suspected it.
As we're coming to the end of this video, I want to hear your thoughts. Like, what do you think? Like, where is this world going, man? Like, I'm actually worried myself because, well, I don't know where this can go. This can go, I feel like, to very dangerous places, like editing someone's gene to the worst, maybe. I hope not, but, you know, we're aware that, we should be aware that these can happen. This is fucking dangerous. I'm sorry. It can affect the future pretty negatively. So we should be careful, but let me tell you something. CRISPR was actually FDA approved for sickle cell disease. And I actually listened to a podcast of the first patient, and she was very happy about it. And I'm really happy that this method was used for a patient to save their life, to improve their life. And well, this method can be done safely, I guess. And I'm just wondering if JK just quickened the process of the approval of CRISPR, or did he just raise questions? I am not sure. I mean, still, I think this is CCR5 methodology is still being developed, since that HIV treatment is not still approved of FDA. However, the kids seem to be safe and healthily living, Lulu and Nana. Oh, and in the middle of the interview, there was a question asked to jiankui. There was like, oh, are there any babies on the way, like, that we were not aware of? And he's like, and I just noticed something about JK. He just has a weird nose tick, and I don't know what that's in psychology, and I'm gonna look it up now.
A couple of scientists and doctor to find out CCR5 is the one to recommend. And then once you have
Well, I couldn't find it, but I'm sure it's related to something he's saying.
You said that there's been no other implantations, but just to be clear, are there any current pregnancies with embryos that have been genome edited as part of your clinical trials?
there is another one, but it tend to monitor.
It's what?
There's another potential pregnancy.
It's very, I think you said a very early stage, so
Yeah,
it's
a very
a
early
chemical
stage.
pregnancy rather than.
Yes.
There's a baby on the way, and you just say it now. Like, what are you waiting for to tell this, to drop this bomb? And as far as I understood, this situation was also like made secretly from the government of China. That's why he went to jail in the first place. But gene editing is, as far as I understood, not approved in China. I don't know if it's still or back then. Well, yeah, now he's out and back in his lab and working on genetic disorders and I think Alzheimer's disease and something with muscle, I forgot the name. Anyway, I hope this CRISPR technology goes to good places and not too dangerous. Finally, I found some comments in the comment section of the jiankui YouTube videos and made me think a little, so I wanted to mention them. Okay, so the first one, it's surprising that when people with purest of intentions do some work that is a really important step in the evolution of human beings. Others who find it difficult to understand its importance at the moment criticize them. A day will surely come when gene alteration will be necessary to eradicate diseases which are just not possible through medicines. And then people will understand the need of it. So it will be okay then. Let such a disease happen in their families today, and let's see if they deny a chance for their kids to have a normal life. And well, I want to put the clip of this where Hu Jiankui also says that he would also get this treatment if he had a situation like this. He would do it to his children.
If this was going to be your baby, would you have gone ahead with this?
Okay, that's good. So if it's my baby may have the same situation, I would try it first.
Another comment is about the ethical issues that really moved me. The point is this: the people he's talking to are members of the Second International Summit on Human Editing. It is made up of his peers, many experts in the scientific field surrounding the human genome and editing it. When he attended the first summit, the consensus among this expert scientific community was that editing human DNA should be carried out clinically until we are sure that the significant safety and ethical concerns are understood and mitigated. And Dr. He went ahead and did it anyway. He also did secretly and did not even inform the Chinese government, as I told you, to demonstrate even one tiny part of the concern. Human gene editing was done in a lab on 50 embryos. Oh, and basically, by the way, in Hu Jiankui's experiment of 7 couples, there were 30 embryos with 70% of them edited. And this person is talking about a separate clinical trial. Okay, so human gene editing was done in a lab on 50 embryos. It was done on a gene which is known to cause hereditary blindness. The embryos were not implanted, it was a laboratory experiment only. They then analyzed the embryos afterwards. It was found that the hereditary blindness was likely to have been resolved by this gene editing. It was also found that 50% of all the embryos also suffered from chromosome deletion, as I mentioned in the first part. And if they had been transplanted, if these babies were transplanted, the effects of those would be catastrophic and inhuman. These safety concerns held by the community of scientific experts were sizable, severe, and based upon sound evidence like the example given. There are also international laws surrounding what is allowed when dealing with human embryo science. This guy broke those laws, and he also totally ignored all his peers' concerns and explicit agreement not to proceed. And he did in secret without telling anyone. It's obvious in the way he answers the questions that he has no regard for anyone of those expert opinions. He has decided he knows best and carried on anyway. This is not the way science works. Scientific progress is delivered by peer consent and review. If that is breached, then we are simply reverting to long since evolved past, Neanderthal laws of humanity and human behavior. There are far-reaching, unknown ethical, societal, and scientific consequences to the future of humanity being dealt with when gene editing in humans. One such example is who has access to it. IVF, in vitro fertilization by the way, is demonstrated of this. Right now, rich people can access IVF without hurdles. Poor people cannot. Going forward, gene editing could mean that rich people become perfect and without disease, whereas poor people remain diseased. Think about a world where only poor people get cancer, for example, and that's just one of a myriad of future problems that are not only ethical, but potential unknown physical consequences of gene editing. This is about as dystopian as it gets. Well, yeah, thank you, lady, that you just turned this into a George Orwell novel. Thank you. And thank you for watching. I hope you like this, and many future cases of science is about to come, because I realized there's just no people talking about the crimes that are made in science. Well, there are many, or maybe we're just scared that we're gonna oopsie. See you later, alligator. Bye.